Welcome to my channel. I'm Dani Marie AUC, and today's topic is one I could probably rave about for a while. It's about something I like to call the blind tax. Let's talk about it. So excuse the noise in this video, for real. I don't know what my dad is doing on the tractor and in the rain nonetheless. But if you guys have been here and you would like to support my channel, you can do so by liking, subscribing, and sharing my videos. I really appreciate all of you guys and your comments and your suggestions and everything that you guys have given me over the past few months of working on this channel. It's meant the world to me, truly. Anyway, let's get into this. What is the blind tax? So the blind tax is something akin to the pink tax. And what the pink tax is essentially the phenomenon that has become women's beauty products, feminine products, and anything that is quote unquote pink. So in comparison to the male targeted counterparts, things like razors, shaving cream, shampoo and conditioner, body wash, soaps, these things for women are way more expensive than they are for men. And I don't know if that's because women are willing to pay for them, or because in some instances there aren't many other alternatives. Now, over the years, of course, we have seen a lot of alternatives come up, and that, you know, includes things like Dollar Shave Club and things like that. There's lots of affordable options for many of these things, and that's fine. I could honestly do a whole video about the pink tax itself, but we're not gonna do that here, so let's jump in. I could honestly rave about the pink tax probably in a series of videos, honestly, because I think it's ridiculous, but let's move on. So what is the blind tax? This is a term I use to refer to the premium cost of entry into making the world accessible for someone who is blind or visually impaired. As a blind or visually impaired person living in a world that was designed and built for the sighted, there are so many various modifications that we find ourselves having to make. Now, as someone who lives in that weird in-between where I have a good bit of usable vision, I can make pretty affordable and sometimes free modifications for myself. And I want you guys to know that I totally appreciate that there is a difference here, and that I appreciate the weird privilege that being in between has granted me, because that is not the case for some people who have less vision than me or none at all, because those modifications that I can make to make my life a little bit easier, they are either overpriced or involve the help of another person to make happen. And I just really wanted to make a note of that for you guys who are out there like me, to make sure that you do appreciate the weird privilege that you have. And for those of you who have less vision than me, I want you to know that I do understand that you guys struggle with a lot more things that I don't struggle with, and I know that there are some different things that I struggle with that you guys don't. And that's perfectly fine. I think having the perspective of all the different levels of blindness and visual impairment has added so much to me as a person, to just be able to understand different people, different types of people, different struggles and things like that. And it just really adds to my perspective. And I'm someone who loves all the perspectives. I guess it's probably why I went and got a degree in counseling. But anyway, let's move on. Let's start right at the top. Computer accessibility, technology accessibility, because in some way or another, most people are using a computer every day, whether that be their smartphone or an actual PC, Mac, or laptop of some kind. Whatever it is, we're using them all the time. So to make that accessible, there are some free options already available. So Mac OS has Zoom and VoiceOver built in. Windows has Magnifier and Narrator built in. Also, you have NVDA, which is a free screen reader available for Windows. Not available for Mac as far as I know, but who knows, that might change. But because these screen readers, magnifier solutions are not always perfect, and believe me, they have come a long way from where they used to be when I first started trying to use Magnifier and Zoom, because I have used both. But they're not perfect, and one screen reader, especially for someone who completely relies on a screen reader, is not always going to get the job done. One screen reader might not cooperate with a certain program you need to use. And are you just, as a blind person, supposed to say, oh, I can't use that program because it's not accessible? You know what? That happens so many times. And blind people don't go around saying, oh, I just want to see what I can get out of doing today because I can use the excuse that it's not accessible. No, that is so frustrating. Nobody walks around thinking that. So anyway, before I jump on that rant, the point is here, once you get into those other screen reader programs like JAWS, Zoom Text, the Fusion one that I think is both of those two in one, they are so expensive, and we're talking over $1,000 expensive. We're not talking $60, okay? We're talking way up there. And then they try and rope you into some of these subscription programs, so there's also that. But more on that down the road in another video sometime. So I know blind people don't need a good monitor, so they can spend less money on that and save it for their screen reader. Well, do you think that $200 you saved on a monitor is going to balance out the $1,000 that it costs to use one of the more common and also ridiculously expensive screen readers? No, it's not. It's not at all. So let's talk about the weird in-between place that I find myself as someone who has usable vision that I do utilize at the computer. I do like to have nice monitors, and I'm not saying I like 4K monitors. I am perfectly content with 1080p because I am going to enlarge the fonts and enlarge the icons and things on the screen anyway, so I don't need all that resolution to show me all that detail that I'm not going to utilize. Because if we're being real honest, 1080p is just fine for most people, but I'm not looking for perfection. So I have two monitors actually, because if you're someone who's ever used Zoom or Magnifier and use the full screen version, you get such a small amount of screen real estate. So the two monitors, and Magnifier absolutely works with the two monitor setup. I have been using it for a while now. It looks great. Now I have this magnified area to look at spread across two full monitors, and I think my monitors are 24 inches or something like that, so it's fantastic. But also I need the monitor stand and the mount to mount the two monitors together, and then to raise them up off of the desk so that I'm not hunched over all the time, because I've lived most of my life like that. And really, on top of everything else we've touched on, we could add in orthopedics, we could add in chiropractor visits, we could add in all those things as expenses to those who are blind and visually impaired, because the reason we hunch over and deal with some of the neck problems and the back problems and the stressed out joints is because we're visually impaired. I actually used to go to the chiropractor every few weeks for a while. My insurance covered it, it was fantastic, but I just can't get out of the house to do that every week. It's such a challenge, but it was so good. It felt so good on my neck and my back and my hips, and if I could do that weekly and somehow fit that in with getting transportation, things like that, I totally would, because it's amazing. But again, that's another logistical thing to work out. It's another expense, you know. we'll add that to our list. Next, how about the cost of navigating the outside world? We have canes, we have guide dogs and all their upkeep, we have CCTVs, magnifiers, all of these things that we use on a daily basis to just get around. And we could talk about the expense of guide dogs alone. We have the puppy raisers, the training, the veterinary stuff that goes into it, the food, just so many things that go into the cost of a guide dog. And people rely on these things. If it weren't for charities and volunteers and donations to these wonderful guide schools that are all around the world, I don't know who would be able to afford to use one. I really don't. And you can ask any guide dog user, having a guide dog makes their world 1,000 times better. So mobility canes, they're the affordable option, right? So I just ordered my custom graphite colored mobility cane. Here it is. I showed it off in a previous video. I also have a video showing me going through their site and the process of actually picking out the colors and the length and all that. If you guys haven't seen it, I will link my All About the White Cane playlist in the upper right corner and in the description below. But this thing was about $60. And I know there are cheaper options, but let's be real. Why should we not have that small amount of individuality that shows off our personality, that makes us feel more comfortable with using this thing that already feels so stigmatized and so clinical? I mean, I know I, for one, struggle very much making myself use this cane, even though in my head, I know how much it can help me. I know all the benefits, I know the safety of using one, and I know it would also it would raise my traveling confidence. But yet, there's this thing that is so clinical and sets you apart as a blind person, as someone who needs help, and it's just weird. But having this customized version that fits my personality, that fits my character, that makes me smile a little bit when I pick it up and see its bright colors. I mean, there's no trade-off for that, and we shouldn't have to give it up. So that's just one of the extra costs of being blind or visually impaired. Say my $60 times, especially those of you who use one very often, you have to replace these things or you have to get them refurbished. So there's that. Handheld CCTVs are kind of next, and I've used a couple of these over the years along with some less portable options, and they run, I mean, they can start at $100, but the really nice ones with the good battery life and the features you want, I mean, they're like $400 to $500. Yes, you can get a magnifier, especially a non-electric one, just a plain magnifier at all kinds of price ranges, and that's fantastic. We all love those at varying amounts, but that's still an extra item, whether it be $5 or $500, still an extra item that you have to utilize on a daily basis. Also, I do use my smartphone a ton for all of these tasks, for reading labels, for taking pictures of instructions so I can actually see them, or even have them read to me in some cases. That means that I need a decent smartphone with a decent camera, reliable, so I know it's not going to crap out on me when I'm trying to use it for something vitally important. And that also means I always have to have it with me. I cannot count the number of times I've had to go from whatever I was doing, go get my smartphone for whatever it was I needed, whether it be a food label or directions to something or just changing the channel on the TV. I mean, just stupid things from day to day. And I don't always want to carry my phone with me. I kind of enjoy a little break from that sometimes, you know, but it's either that or always carry around a couple different magnifiers, because you've got the distance things that you might need. For me, changing the TV channel at my house right now, there are things that impede me getting all the way up to that TV to change the channel. And then I need the things for close-up, like magnification of directions or labels or things. That's two different tools that my smartphone can tackle. What about consuming media, consuming information? So Braille books, the products to write Braille and then the products to print Braille, are so ridiculously expensive. I mean, I don't have prices for you guys, but you just trust me on this. Anybody who's ever looked at a Braille note or just one of the Braille touch typers and things like that, just the typewriter that prints on the embossed paper is hundreds of dollars, maybe more. But the point is here, this is extra. This is extra stuff that we need just to consume media. Also, audiobooks. Many in the blind and visually impaired communities love audiobooks. Have you ever compared an audiobook's price to a print book's price? They're way more expensive. Yeah, I know, they have to pay for the voice actor, blah, 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 but that's not the point. Someone who is blind or visually impaired can't just go pick up that print book, and they certainly can't just go pick up that used print book to read, because even if there's someone like me and they can read print media, it's a hassle. I have to use a magnifier these days, and that in itself is tiring and takes way more effort than it should to read a book. So I opt for ebooks a lot, and that's just my personal choice. I opt for those because they are somewhere in between audiobooks and print books when it comes to price. Sometimes you can find ebooks on sale, but it doesn't happen that often, if we're being honest. And you can't buy used ebooks or audiobooks, as I've mentioned. So you don't get the luxury of going to a used bookstore and picking up somebody else's book and buying it for like a third of the price. So as I mentioned, I use ebooks, and I generally will use text-to-speech with those ebooks in various readers that I utilize. And I use the text-to-speech when my eyes are just too tired to read, or I don't want to wear my eyes out at the time. But this is not always a good option for everyone. That robot voice is not for everyone. And for someone who has to use a screen reader all day for their phone, for their computer, for whatever, that robot voice always talking at you is exhausting. So they want an actual voice, like an actual audiobook to enjoy books. And why shouldn't they be able to? Why shouldn't someone who is blind or visually impaired still be able to enjoy all of the media in the form of books or whatever that they want? I mean, I know the world's not perfect, but I'm just saying all this to make the point that the cost of entry into just enjoying media and just getting around, just getting by from day to day is so much more expensive for someone who is blind or visually impaired. And this is important for people to know. What about labeling things at home? Whether that be food or laundry or whatever. So there are lots of solutions for this. You have Braille labelers, you have bump dots, you have puff paint, you have that Pen Friend scanner, you have NFC solutions for this now. None of these are what I'd call cheap, and they're still an added expense, just so that a person can do daily tasks. Like I said, cooking, cleaning, getting around their home, doing their laundry, picking out their clothes. These are just normal everyday things that most people just don't think about. They just do them. But again, there's an added expense for someone who's blind or visually impaired. This isn't the end of the list, but I think I've covered as many things as is reasonable to cram into one of these videos. And if you're a parent of someone who is blind, or you are newly blind yourself, I didn't make this video to scare you. This video is about raising awareness to those who have no idea that the cost of things for blind and visually impaired people is so expensive. And it truly is. But I'm not saying that so you guys are scared. I want you to know that if you're someone out there who needs to use some of these resources, or someone who needs to get some of these tools just to live your life, there are ways in which you can go about doing that. One, the NFB has a free cane program where you can get started with that. Also, as I mentioned, there are guide dog charities. There are state agencies, at least in the US. I believe the UK and Canada both have solutions for this as well, that will help to train you in daily living skills, orientation and mobility, and things like that at no cost to you. You also have resources like vocational rehabilitation here in the US that helps get the tools you need to work or to go to school. And then we have things like the IEP and Schools for the Blind that will help you with the tools in your early school years. I didn't make this video to terrify anyone. I only made this video to raise awareness, and I want you guys to be clear on that. This wasn't about catastrophizing or anything like that. This is just about the truth and the reality that is accessibility and just making the world accessible to someone who is blind or visually impaired. There are so many things to think about. If you are someone who needs to find resources and information and things like that, make sure to check out my site's resource page. I will link it below. I am always adding things to it as well, and if you have something you would like to have added to that site, you can just send me an email. My email is on my channel page, it is on my website, all over the website. It's at the bottom of the page, it's on my about page, it's everywhere. Send me an email. Send me your links, let me know, I'll check them out and I'll get them added to my site, no problem. But thank you guys for being here again, and if you would like to support my channel when I do, you can like, subscribe, and share my videos. Until next time, stay curious. Bye.